Hey guys, it's just Anna, and today we're going to talk about the beautiful masterpiece made by Markus Zusak.
We found Wonderland, you and I got lost in it.
I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a great week and a great day. I recently read The Book Thief by Markus Zusak and was absolutely mesmerized, fell in love, so I decided I was going to do a review. But when it came down to choosing on which channel I was going to do my review, since I have a Spanish booktube channel as well, I just couldn't decide, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do them on both. So I do have a Spanish version of this review, so if you want to go check that out, I'll have it linked down below, so you can go check it out if you speak Spanish. So, The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. How can I possibly do a review about a book that deserves so much more than great words? There aren't enough words to describe my infatuation over these characters, over the plot, over just everything in general about this book. The characters were filled with so much more than the soul and depth, but they were filled with flaws, and it's something that I really appreciate, since we don't have much of those these days in characters. Their flaws made me want to read with more interest and want to know more about these characters, and that's why they all have a special place in my heart now. So I saw the movie before reading the book, which is something you're not supposed to do, but I kind of did it because I wanted to see what it was about before getting into the book, and I fell in love with the movie, and I feel like that's what inspired me to read the book. I know people don't usually see book-to-movie adaptations before reading the book, but if a book-to-movie adaptation makes you want to read the book, then mission accomplished, it's done its job. Obviously, the book overshadows the movie, but that doesn't mean the movie isn't great, because I really love both of them, but obviously the book was a lot better. Besides being the most heart-wrenching story ever, it was such a different story. It's narrated by Death, which is already really interesting, and Death tells this story. This girl named Liesel, who lives in Nazi Germany, her parents were communists, so they sent her to live with these foster parents, these adoptive parents, that take her in, Mama and Papa, and just seeing the relationship between these two characters with Liesel was so beautiful and amazing because they're so different. Papa is just this gentle and loving and humble person, and Mama is really hard on Liesel and doesn't express her emotions like Papa does. But I love them both exactly the same, because even though Mama never said anything to Liesel about her feelings towards her, you could see in her actions and you could see through her eyes, even though I couldn't see her while reading obviously, but you could see how much she loved Liesel. And I think this goes a lot with the phrase less is more. Mama really turned into one of my favorite characters because just a solid rock that was really hard to break, and I felt like she was a lot more interesting. Even though the Second World War is something I have a very immense curiosity about, I just can't fathom to understand how it possibly occurred. It's really sad, obviously, but reading books about it now, it kind of opens your perspective on the world. Even Death, the narrator, the biggest accomplice of the Second World War, didn't understand how this happened. And just to see how Death described his feelings towards this was so beautiful to read. Besides Death being the narrator, it would give you facts about certain things. So whatever doubt or question you have, it would constantly be answered by the narrator. So my questions were always answered immediately. And another interesting thing is that their own narrator spoils the story for you. So that was very surprising. I did not expect that at all. It didn't spoil you once, it would constantly remind you what was going to happen at the end. And I was very shocked by this, but in some strange way, it helped the story a lot. And I don't know why, I just felt like it narrowed down the surprise and shock of the end. And it kind of made it more about Liesel's story and not what happens at the end. People that have read this book say that the beginning is very slow and boring and that they have a hard time getting into it, but for me it wasn't like that. Once I read the first chapter, I was already hooked. So I feel like you can read it with such ease and simplicity. It's not like something you have to push through to get to the end. I don't feel like it was that way for me. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I never saw it boring or difficult to read. One of the best things about this book was Liesel's love for books. The way she described her love towards books made me compare her love to books to mine. And even though I already obviously appreciate words and books, reading this book made me appreciate them so much more. I already appreciated them a lot before reading this book, but now that I've read this book, it's like another level of appreciation has been added on, and it's great that a book does that to you. When a book affects you in some sort of way, I think it's a good book. I think it's done its job. So Max and Rudy, such different relationships, and I loved Max's relationships with Liesel. It was such a beautiful friendship. You could see how much Liesel admired Max, how she couldn't wait to get home from school to see him, how she wanted to make him gifts, and how she wanted to take care for him, and vice versa, because Max is such an amazing character. I feel like he taught Liesel so much, and it's something that affected her life. As well as Rudy. Rudy is such an adorable and amazing character, and he's such a positive and full of energy that because of everything that's happening around them in this horrible time in history, you could see how his behavior and how his energy and positivity changes and develops throughout the story. It's like a different type of energy, and you can see how this horrible thing that's happening around him affects him in some sort of way. And reading this book from the kids' point of view, like Liesel and Rudy and just all the kids in the neighborhood, you could see that just because they weren't Jews, it doesn't mean that they didn't suffer. Kids suffered from just these little things happening to them, which is something no kid should go through. So finally, all that's left for me to say is that I think it's definitely a book that I'm going to revisit in the future. I feel like it's one of those I have to read once a year because it's just so beautiful, and this book is a place Liesel calls home and I call masterpiece, because I want to thank Markus Zusak for breaking my heart. That's a weird thing to say, but thank you for breaking my heart, because it's one of the best books I've ever read, and I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. So if you have read this book, please let me know in the comments below. I would love to know more about your thoughts. I have a full written review on Goodreads if you want to read that. Don't forget to follow my social media links because I'm constantly updating. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!